Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening. This is Tara with Beyond This Reality, and I have Vasi on again. And she has a business, which is her name, Vasiliki Benjamin. If you ever want to find her, you can go on vasilikibenjamin.com. And she works with people to help them nourish their mind, body, and soul. So if you would like to find out how she does that, it's a really great idea to reach out to her. And I hope you enjoy our conversation today. We are going to talk about what it means to go beyond confidence. And really our conversation started with talking about kids. She's a new mom. My kids are 9 and 12 currently. But this conversation is way beyond children and how to show up as a conscious parent for your kids. This has been a huge conversation for me in a lot of my client sessions lately. So I'm going to open it up to you, Vasi, and see what your beginning questions are, and then we'll see where we go with this.
Yeah, so just to start off, what would you say is the definition of being confident?
Gosh, so being confident to me is it's really attached to not being confident. And so for me, everyone who's going for confidence is dragging along their the desire not to be unconfident, and they're resisting against appearing that way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So for me, this is my point of view, as when I work with people and how I see people, they want to appear as though they have mastery within them. They understand things, that they're invincible almost, and above reproach. All of those things is what I see people being. Now, there's times when confidence does come across like you've mastered something. So, but my question is, what about all that time in between? And where I want to go with this conversation is, what happens when you're not confident? Right? So does that happen often in life, and do you fake it till you make it type of thing? Or is there possibly something else that's even greater than confidence that we can be going for?
So would you say that confidence is taught, you have something you have to learn, or is it something that just comes naturally?
I do think it's something that's taught. There's a different space that's way more fulfilling, which is the choice to be, which is beyond confidence. And within that is the okay to be the not knower, totally unconfident, totally confident, totally radiant, insane. Kids just be, and then we teach them to be confident, which in there is an inherent wrongness to showing up not having the answers. Because confidence, if you think about most people who are confident, they have the answers, right? And what if you don't?
So I always thought that confidence was basically not needing the approval of others to feel okay with yourself. Mm-hmm. What would that be considered?
So to me, that is innately being, so centering yourself on you, so really being centered. And there is an aspect of that, that I can understand that you would call that confidence, but I would say to you, when you go into a situation where you personally feel unconfident, do you center yourself, right? Because that's why we're centering on the self-being. And it's not a resistance to other people's approval or disapproval, right? there's a space that's really beyond it that is like, you kind of get excited about people approving or not approving. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. So I'll give you this example to try and show you, like, it's like this tiny little difference that is actually so massive. So I have somebody I'm working with at the moment, and she's so funny. And she's like, all I've ever wanted is to live in this la la land, like where nothing's going wrong, I'm not affected, all of this. And while she was trying to live in that la la land, right? So you're blissfully, you don't care about what other people think, right?
Yeah.
And that's what she wanted. She didn't want to care what people thought. She didn't want to, like, she wanted to just flow all the time with whatever was going on in life. But because she was wanting that so badly, she was essentially pushing out anything that wasn't, like, she didn't want people to come in with different points of view or negative points of view or whatever, or like problems to come. And so she was almost barricading herself in her little la-la bubble. And so every time something came that was not in alignment with that, it would like hit against it, and it was like metal, so it would like reverberate, and then she could feel it in all of her body, and everything was causing her to go off kilter. Fast forward about, gosh, it's only, I think, 3 months, and she's like, I'm in a totally different space. Like, things are happening all around me. There's, mean people at this game, and things are, going right, really right in my business, and some things are going wrong. And she's like, but the whole thing is, in it all, like, I'm totally centered. I feel really great about myself. And I just kind of go, oh, wow. So without her trying so hard to be in la la land, where everything's flowing so brilliantly, she's all of a sudden in la la land, because she is in flow, because she has an expectation that things are not going to go right. People are going to say things, people are going to say great things. All these things are going to happen. And as long as she is expanded and centered in herself, it comes in and you go, oh yeah, cool, that's your opinion. Awesome, thanks for sharing. And you move on. Or even, somebody who has an awesome opinion of you, we can be manipulated by those as well. And you go, oh, cool, nice. And you just go back to center, and what are your choices for yourself? Do you see the difference?
Yeah, so not, basically not getting expectations from one way or the other. Just being completely okay with whatever happens. But how do you create that feeling into children? Because children is a completely different aspect than adults, because we can kind of work through things differently than them. So how do you create that for them to start off younger instead of having them to figure it out later?
So I don't think adults are very good at it all. We're good at faking, first of all. Yeah. And so, and then I'm going to slightly change some of your words a little bit. It's knowing that things are coming, like really knowing and anticipating that you're going to be filled with, like, everything from the universe is going to be around you. Because here's the reality. We are it all inside. Yeah. Whatever is happening outside of us really does happen inside of us. We judge. We can pretend to another person that we don't judge, but we do judge. We're constantly going, ooh, that's not for me. Ooh, that's for me. Ooh, I don't like that decision. All these kind of things. So when we move to kids, first of all, their flow. And then we start to teach them that there's good and bad. If you listen to children who are playing with each other, man, they can be brutal to each other, like giving each other a hard time, and they just laugh. Most of the time they don't care, until then all of a sudden we say to them, ooh, that's bad. If you're in a family, the very first bully that your kid is ever going to encounter is their brother or sister.
Yep.
All right. So nature has already created a way that children get to play with other people's disapproval. And instead of going, each person's going to deal with the situation in itself, what level of bullying it is. But kids are going to disapprove of each other. You can celebrate the fact that somebody disapproves, right? And so as a parent, you can go into it, even if it's like, obviously you have one daughter and I don't know if you're planning on more kids, but let's say other kids are disapproving of her when she's 4 or 5. You go, cool. That's awesome that they have an opinion. And what do you want to choose? Instead of saying, oh, that's wrong, and, be strong in yourself, be confident in what you're wearing. My kids, especially with clothes, like have very clear opinions, and they don't think each other has great, like they're not in approval of each other. Mm-hmm. And I just always say, cool, choose your own, and awesome that your brother doesn't like yours. Are you going to change it for him? No. All right. Then rock it out. Like be in it. Like choose it with all that you've got, and know that there's going to be a lot of other people out in life who aren't going to like you. They may not like you, not just your clothes. And that's okay. And it's okay for them to have that opinion. And I actually bring up for my kids to look at themselves. Aren't there people in your life where you don't like what they wear? You don't like how they style their hair. You don't like how they show up in the world. You get to choose to be around them or not around them. So it's okay that other people have those opinions too, and you get to choose.
Right.
Right. But there's an energy of resistance that many times that we choose and we teach that doesn't need to be taught. Like it's flow. It's like, all right, so you don't like my parenting. Sometimes I don't like my parenting either. Let's say somebody came up to me like that, or we have our own internal bully. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And it's like, yeah, I can't believe you did that. And it's over. Can't do anything about it now. We're just not perfect.
So what are signs that your child has low confidence? Like, can you point those out ahead of time?
Yeah. When your child is looking to please, first it starts in the home. It really does. And it starts with how we parent. Are we parenting in such a way that is constantly asking our child to do things that makes us happy, right? Instead of really looking at, and this is a balance, right? Like looking at what's their internal wisdom. So again, I'll give, like, my kids are the easiest rather than like going into other people's private things that I do for clients. But my youngest son, like, he's highly sensitive energetically. And there were times where he absolutely would not go in different places. And I had to like step back and go, what is he aware of that I'm not allowing myself to be aware of? Mm-hmm. And literally I could sense, like, one of them was when we were looking for a different house, and he wouldn't go into this one house. And as soon as I tuned in, instead of being appropriate, I made an appointment, and so I should go in here. And I actually tuned in. I was like, wow, it's so toxic. And I said to the real estate agent, I was like, wow, there's a lot of toxic energy in there. I personally can't even believe I said it at this point. And she was like, oh yeah, I can have the owners leave. Like, you're totally right. And I was like, no, like, even if they left, the whole place is filled with it. And so we just left, and then there's other times where, because he's so sensitive, he may not want to go in, but I sense that, like, it would be a greater contribution for him. And I asked the questions, like, what is the greatest contribution? And so I asked him to, like, connect to my energy. Like, that's when he was like super young. I'm like, just connect to me be in my energy and you'll be fine. And he is. And then really it's so important for me as a parent to expand. So the greatest way I can say like how to expand is to imagine that you have a sun inside of you, like the sunshine inside of you. And most of us have contracted it so much that it's like tiny inside, and to ask it to burst out of your body because we're that powerful. And when we do that, it's like instead of a veil of protection, we are just emanating this gorgeous warmth of light, and then they get to be surrounded by it rather than being bombarded by other people's. And then when you go in, you actually start to affect and transform a lot of other people's energies as you walk. And so to me, like, I can't always be like, okay, yeah, we're not going to go anywhere. Let's just stay in our house, right? I have to teach him how to do that. And then he does it for himself now.
Yeah.
So
going back to pleasing people, like I see an example, like kids in school now, I don't know what age, 12, I don't know if it starts at then or older, but kids will peer pressure and they'll start to, try to make you do something you don't want to do, and do something dangerous or take a drug or do something like that. Does that tie into confidence and tie into standing in who you are in order to respond how you want to respond instead of pleasing that person and making them happy?
So again, it goes back to like the formative years in the home, and you can change this if you're already dealing with it. But for you especially, or any new parents, the more that you teach your child to please you all the time, you are teaching them to please anyone. Mm-hmm. You need them to know their own voice. It's really, really, really important for them to be really fierce at times. It's important for them to be crazy joyful at times, but to know their voice, and for you to foster that before they come to the age of like middle school, where their bodies are changing, they're aware of so much more, there's so much more experimentation and all this kind of stuff, so that they have body awareness. If we're constantly cutting our kids off, and this is why to me it's not a conversation about confidence, because confidence is here,
right?
And it doesn't ever change. Whereas being centered and having body awareness, in one situation you might make one choice, and in another situation you might make a totally different choice, because you're aware of beyond logic. And our kids have that when they're born. But in so many ways, we ask them to please, and we ask them to follow all the rules. And then because we're asking them to follow all the rules, they need to go up and have a time where they're breaking all the rules. Yeah. So if you, it's not even teach, if you foster an environment where you're constantly having conversations about what their choices are and what makes them feel like them, and having conversations about like, okay, so here's a great one. 9-year-old, a parent was talking to me the other day. 9-year-old is choosing not to be friends with somebody at the moment. And she's like, I don't like that. Like, she just needs to like stay friends with her. And I said, have you asked any questions? Right? Because you can say like, I don't want her to be one of those kids who like comes in and goes out. But what if that is the greatest kindness? It may not be, but the greatest kindness might be to have a little bit of a break from somebody. Like, she might know more things. They're so wise. Yeah. Kids are. And so even if there's like a slight switch that needs a change, we always show up as like these let me just tell you how it's done. And we don't ask enough questions. And asking like, hey, so you're just choosing to hang out with other friends at the moment. What's going on? Like, what do they bring you? Like, what are, how is the fun different? Like, or, like with this, there's like one girl who's really quiet and doesn't want to hang out with the other two. It's like, how can you foster like all of them getting to know each other when there's four girls, right? And so the one is like the bridge in between, but she's not finding it easy to bridge the in between. So the new girl is asking just to spend time alone with her, which is pulling her away from these other two. But it could not be anything that's wrong. It could be like the innate knowing that this one girl is super insecure and whatever else. And so as a parent, how do you foster getting them all together and like helping the others get together? Or, does the new girl need lots of one-on-one time with each one of the girls in order to foster a relationship? It's like going beyond the obvious and really asking questions. Like my oldest son at the moment, he changed friends in middle school. And at first I was like, wait a minute, like you were friends with them forever in elementary school. Don't just like walk away from your friends. Like this is me inside. And before I went into all that, like, right? It's like, I just asked questions. I said, well, how come you're doing that? And he's like, Mom, they're making choices that I don't feel comfortable with. And I was like, cool.
How is that?
Right. I loved it. But I could have railroaded him and been like, well, they've been your friends forever. You need to hang out with them. And he's like, and so it happened a little bit with some friends and then it happened with other friends. And so I asked more questions and, more and more friends were making choices that were not in alignment with what he wants. He wants to be at the top of his class and, have great grades. And he knows what he wants to do and what school he wants to go to in college, even at 12. And so he's like, I need to stay clear to that. That's not from me. And that's not from my ex-husband. That's from us fostering in him what he wants out of life and him asking what is going to contribute. But he doesn't do it with his brain. He just knows and then he chooses. He knows and he chooses. And the more that we foster that in our kids and celebrate it rather than constantly making them wrong, that is powerful, and it will allow them to make different choices when they're presented with things. And I know for myself and another mom, there's a lot of things that kids don't know about these days that can get them in trouble. And so it is giving them the information and letting them watch videos or things like that so that they're a little bit prepared. And then just asking them to tell you, what's your takeaway? What's your experience? Rather than feeling like you're this lording energy, because the more that you foster in them that they know and that not even that you trust them, right? Because there's like a heavy energy to like, I trust you. It's kind of like you just know that they have their own back.
Yeah.
Because you've already fostered it for so long.
Right. That was my next question is how do parents, I think it's unintentionally kill their confidence, kill their child's confidence. Like I see it all the time. Kids will say something and their parents will automatically put them down or tell them that's wrong or tell them that's not right. And why are they even going to try and speak their voice or say the truth when they're always wrong?
Well, absolutely. And, this comes to the whole idea that so many of us want to fit in, which is it's a very different thing than belonging. So belonging is when you get to be all of you and people love you. And it can happen anywhere that you go. And first of all, we need to belong in our own body, like belong to ourselves. And having a parent that creates the ability for a child, even from the age of 2, the age of, a couple months, like asking questions all the time, what do you want? And then fostering that. Beyond that, so the whole fitting in thing is super huge. If you're trying to fit in as a parent with all the other people and you don't want people to say things about you, you kind of are in a little bit of trouble, because your kid is going to want to fit in. And there's a lot of crowds in school where, in order for them to fit in, they're going to make choices that are not in alignment with what's best for them, in order to do what you taught them all the way along, which is fit in. Mm-hmm. And so you can want to regulate their friends all that you want. Like you want to make sure that they're in the right crowd, and yet you never know what the right crowd is. There's a lot of people out there that look and are able to please everybody on the surface, and those can be the ones who on the backside are having your kids go and do things that are not a contribution to their body, their mind, or their soul. So allowing them to be fierce and crazy and making different choices, or making totally acceptable choices. Like, it doesn't mean that your kid's going to be like off the rocker because you're giving them their own voice, but allowing them to choose from a really young age, and listening to what their choices are. And then also showing them like what their natural consequences are. So there's natural consequences to everything. And then asking, like, so they could wear a wild outfit to school, right? And then they could come home and be like, oh my gosh, I was totally made fun of, blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay, so do you want to change your outfit tomorrow so you're not made fun of? Or would you like to stay wild and own it? And that conversation is amazing, because most parents would go, oh, well, the natural consequence was that other kids made fun of them, and now they know not to do that.
Right.
Wow. Like, now they still have another choice. So they could go, yeah, like, I want to dress like everybody else, and that makes me feel good. Or, no, I'm going to do the same thing, or I'm going to turn it up. Like, this is a lot of fun, right? People get to have choices, or not choices, but opinions. And teaching your kid that it's okay that other people have differing opinions and to welcome those is super huge.
Right. Because without that, there forever be a people pleaser. If that's not established and talked about now when they're young, I feel like it's years and years of trying to reverse something that could be caught so early on.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that also happen with people pleasing. Like, some people just like become empty of themselves, and so they people please. There's other people who on the surface they're people pleasing, and behind closed doors they're doing all kinds of other things, which is usually what happens. Is it's not even what they desire. It's like so in resistance. It's could be harmful to them. So they're never in the center. When you start people pleasing, you never go to your center, because you're either pleasing or you're on the other side of this swinging pendulum. And gosh, these days, I don't know what the numbers are of people on antidepressants and anti-anxiety and anti whatever heck else is out there, filling their bodies with chemicals. And I'm not saying that people don't have that choice. It is out there, but it's an epidemic these days. And a lot of it is because we think that we need to fit in, that we need to please, instead of actually knowing how to choose for ourselves from the age of a kid. But even as parents, like, if you're a parent and you're doing it yourself, then of course your kid's going to get that they should do it too, even if you're not actively parenting that way. But if you're acting that way, if you're always trying to fit in and avoid judgment and your kids are going to absorb that.
Right. And that was the other point, is that numbing the feelings, not letting them feel embarrassed or made fun of or sad, or like you want to immediately take away those feelings. But if they don't process them, they're going to find something to fill in that feeling, whether it be drugs, food, whatever. If they don't, I feel like if they don't process that and just be who they are and be okay with everything about themselves, they will find something to process it for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, as feelings. Like, most of us have like a set of feelings that are okay to feel, which is very little. It's not even passion or excitement or anything like that. Even those seem to be tempered, because there's only certain places that you can be excited, on the baseball field or on the football field, or, most other places you need to like be calm. You need to be happy, but like only so happy. So in those, like, and people can cry, like, we're a society that crying is a great thing. Like, we really foster crying, but you can't be mad, and you can't cry too much, or you can't cry too loud. You can't, you can be depressed on pills, but please don't bring me your depression. So there's so many rules around emotions, and yet every single emotion has within it a gift and an invitation and a message. And the more that we foster our kids being expressive, the more creative they will be, the more centered they will be. And usually, if we don't try and stop them, the anger goes, and then it's literally gone within like 1 minute, sometimes seconds, when we don't try and temper it, Same thing with sadness. Like, they'll cry, and then they'll be done. And then, like, you've seen kids, like, they're crying, and then you're like, what the heck? They're off giggling, just let them express. Like, they felt it in their body. It moved through, and there's so much power in allowing the emotions to flow freely. Yeah. So.
That's awesome.
So to me, it isn't, for me, and, I know that I think you like the word confidence. Like, to me, it's not a level of confidence. It's whether we as adults, and then we help kids to be centered, to listen to their body's awareness, to celebrate their body's awareness, and to foster them to have the space in order to experiment with it, right? And then for us, it's so interesting, because if you're really doing this conscious parenting and conscious living, and you have kids, they're constantly an invitation to you to stay centered. The minute that you start to get off center, you can feel the reverberations between you and them. And instead of us going into a wrongness or judging ourselves or being like, oh my gosh, like, I've totally let them down, you just go, oh, I can feel the reverberations. What do I need to do to get back to my center, so that I'm expanded, so that I'm showing up the most me possible? And here's the thing, when other people have reactions to us, to be authentic about what our response is to that. Because there's going to be times where somebody doesn't like what we do as adults, and you go, gosh, that's cool, right? That's awesome that they don't like it, and maybe I could change, or I totally love this, and so I'm not going to change. And then there's other times that even in front of your kid, you can say, gosh, it hurt. It hurt when they said that, and to let them know it's okay to be hurt. But it really isn't even about the other person. It's our own judgment of ourselves that makes it hurt. And it's our own judgment to say, like, I actually had an expectation that they would approve of me, and I need to let that go, because it's not about their approval or disapproval. It's about me being. And the wild and wonderful thing that happens so often is when we give up looking for people to approve or disapprove, knowing that they will do those at different times and people are going to change, there's a relaxation of yourself and everyone around you that it doesn't evoke approval. It just evokes a relaxation. And so there's not so much of a harsh or strong, like, yeah, that was perfect, keep on doing that, or you totally should have done it different. It's like, oh, okay, so you did it different. Cool. You know, like people just get more and more relaxed around you, and then it's easier and easier to be you. But first you have to choose to be centered and expanded, and then teach your kids to continue. They were born centered and expanded.
Yeah. So important.
It is so important, and it's really counterintuitive to what a lot of things that are taught, and yet it's really life-changing, and like it's fulfilling because you start to feel the centeredness, and then inside, like, people start to overflow. And I honestly, more than even people getting on pharmaceuticals, I don't want to hear of another friend who's lost a spouse or a child or a friend to suicide. And so much suicide is because when you don't know who you are, which is constantly changing, when you feel like you can't be you because you're constantly checking in everywhere you go as to, like, what do I do? Because in this situation, they're going to want this. And then this person over here. I mean, most kids, adults, and everybody have multiple people around them with different opinions. And so they're constantly in a battle. Instead of just being, they empty themselves out. And then it's not worth living.
Right.
When we aren't from the life flow that is us, which is completely unique. There's no book on it. You can go out and read self-help books until you're blue in the face, but no self-help book is written on you, because you're a constant changing being, and you have to get intimately aware of who you are. So as a parent, it's really fostering that delight and awe in your child about themselves. You know, even about sensitivities. Like if you have a child who's highly emotional, it's like, wow, like, what are you feeling? You know, we currently have a hutch of rabbits out front, and I'm in love with them. You know, like they just had a rabbit had little bit bunnies in our yard, and kids will come over, and some kids are like, yeah, whatever. And then other kids want to poke them with a stick, which I don't like, you know, and then there's other kids who it's like they can feel everything. And I feel the same. Like they can feel everything that these little animals are feeling, and fostering that, like, that empathy, but also fostering the kid who, like, that's not their thing.
Right.
That's okay. They don't need to have it. Like, everybody's different. And
another thing that comes, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I was going to say another thing that comes to mind is not forcing your child to do something they don't want to do. Let's say they want to do basketball, and you're forcing them to do gymnastics when, you know, like, because you feel like girls should do gymnastics instead of basketball, like things like that. Like, I think that also takes away them feeling who they are, because they're telling you what they want, but then you want them to do something else. So it's important for the parent, I feel, to also be aware of what they want.
Absolutely. And, you know, there is an epidemic out there of parents living through their children. And so allowing your child to have their own life and to choose for themselves, and to still live yourself as an adult. If you want to, like, if you feel like it's gymnastics and you're a woman, like, go out and try gymnastics. It doesn't matter if you're 30 or 40 or whatever. Like, go out and do these things so that you're still fostering your connection to your life, and then let your child have the wings to try different things. And who knows, if you give them the scope to have a voice, they may come back to what you're wanting, but the more that you push it on them, they won't. And they may not, but what a delight to find out what is possible through the unique being that your child is, and how they want to change the world just by being. I'm totally with you. And I mean, my kids are into all kinds of different sports, but they don't want to be part of a team. Like, not that they don't like friends, but they really love being at home. They just like to play. And so they're much more engaged in school. They love to learn and stay on top of the grade. But the one things that they are invested in is playing instruments, and it takes time and energy. And it's so interesting because my oldest already plays the violin, and every once in a while I have to say to him, you need to practice. But more times than not, it's a conversation about, like, how are you playing? Do you enjoy it? Do you want to get better? Well, what's it going to take to get better? Not as in, like, I'm trying to use my questions as leading and pushing, but really asking him. And then he's the one who takes it to town. You know, there's times where I'm like, and you could stop playing now because you've been playing too long in the house and it's really loud. But it's really cool to see that when you don't come in thinking, there's an energy inside of us that either believes that they're amazing beings or thinks that they're small and helpless and stupid, really. And our kids get that from us. And so the very same questions that I just asked, somebody else could ask, and they could feel like their parent was making them feel stupid, and they don't want to practice because they're like, yeah, you're just asking because you know the answers and you want me to give you the answers that you want to hear. Whereas that's not how I show up for my kids. Like, I believe they're freaking amazing. And, you know, and I'm always asking myself to take a backseat to their wisdom, you know, because they do know. And they constantly put me in awe of the choices that they make and the investment that they make in their life. And, you know, I don't think that I just got lucky. Like, I feel like fostering infinite beings and them centering themselves on that, they're super powerful. I cannot be with my kids all the time. And every parent that I help, you can't go everywhere with your kid. So how do you set them up so that they're strong enough to make choices that are in alignment with them? And not only that, but like from beyond the brain, because there's a lot of things that are happening where you want them to have this body awareness that they could be walking somewhere and that they just turn and move, that it's not a dark alley. It's just they feel the energy of something and they move. So they avoid a situation that could be harmful to them.
Right.
And we foster that in our kids. So yeah, it's not simple, but it's powerful is what I will say.
And it's a choice.
Say that again.
I believe it's a choice.
It is a choice. And I guess to me, I say to people, like, when they work with me, I'm a glutton. Like, I want your whole life. You know, I had somebody who asked me the other day if they could have some homework, and I was like, yeah, homework, sure, I'll give you some homework, but the main thing is, like, how you're being throughout your day is what's going to change the rest of your life. So the very moment that you have an emotion that feels out of alignment with you, you just ask it questions. You don't go into judgment. It's like, what is this? And then you're constantly in question all day long. Well, asking you to be this as a parent so that you can show up to your kid seems harder, and yet it's way more rewarding than following a rule book that somehow, like, in the end, you're going to want to throw out the rule book because it's not working. And I can't tell you the amount of parents who I say, like, here all the time, whether it's in parenting or in marriage, they go, I followed all the rules. I did what I was supposed to do. And look at this. Well, because life is not a rule book. It's not a self-help book. It is our invitation to being the most radiant space that we could ever be, and to be so centered in on ourselves that we explode with like amazingness and respond in every situation in accordance to that situation. And a lot of times the rule book is here, and sometimes we come on it, and then sometimes we're way off of it, and sometimes we come back. It's not throwing the rule book out. It's just the willingness to be everything that is possible and to stay centered. And most people don't want that. They want to, I shouldn't say most people. I see a lot of people believing that if they just had the rule book, they could go through life and not have to try so hard.
Right.
Whereas the opposite is so true. Without the rule book, life becomes so much easier. But I don't know that there's been enough people out there that have said that. You really do flow and have much more enjoyment. And it's not as hard as most people think it is.
Right.
So I tend to find, that's why I wanted to change my words, because I tend to find that the moment that people are aware this doesn't have to be so hard, this choice to be a conscious being, really, even more than parenting, they're willing to do it. And it changes life so much more. But there's just not enough people out there saying this is truly possible, and you can have an enriched life and your whole family can be part of it. It doesn't have to be something that you choose for you and then you lose everyone. The more that you're truly centered in on yourself and expanded, everybody gets blessed.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did you have any other questions?
No, I think we covered a lot, and I'm excited to put these into play once I can and share with others, because I know a lot of people, they may know, may not know, but this could just help them so much tremendously, that simple little things can change the whole outcome of their life.
Absolutely. And, I just want to go over again that in almost an hour of talking, like, we can't go over everything. And we really both of us honor that people make different choices, even if it means, like, I'm not against pharmaceuticals. I just think that there's other choices that are available for people at times that they're not aware of. So I think everybody needs to be made aware of all the choices that are available, so you can find the greatest contribution for your own body and for your own children and for your own life. And it can go a lot faster than a lot of people think is possible. Like, you can absolutely make up ground. So if somebody were struggling with a 14-year-old because they didn't start this at the same time as you are, which is really from conception, like, they can make up ground really quickly, because when we choose to be centered ourselves and choose to bring that light to our kids, things change pretty quickly. So it's pretty amazing, actually. So thanks for bringing up this conversation and being on. And if anybody has any questions for Vasi or I, you can put comments in the area below. And if you have any comments as well, those are welcome. And we'll look forward to talking to you all another time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.